Abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
And now, Reality Rants with Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. It is Reality Rants, brought to you by the good people over at redvoicemedia.com. We've got a guest coming up today in the first hour, and then we're going to bring it over to the second hour. Dr. Gary D. Benedetto. I hope I'm not butchering his name, but I was having a really good conversation with him over at the Clay Clark event. And I said, you know what? Make a good guest. Why don't we just have him on? Fellow New Yorker, somebody that stuck it out down in Long Island. So that should be an interesting conversation. But what I wanted to focus on today, at least in the beginning of the broadcast, we'll see where it goes, were Trojan horse civilian systems. Trojan horse civilian systems. And why do I want to use that terminology specifically? Because we are in an era where almost every single large appendage, whether it be academia, whether it be a large tech business, and whether it be the judicial system itself, they are all Trojan horse civilian systems of a predator class, military industrial complex, social engineering, transhumanist agenda. Say that 3 times fast. That's where we're at. Okay? And so many of the individuals, figures, platforms, technologies that are being elevated have actually been cultivated for this agenda. Okay? And I was on, I guess it's pre-taped, so I think it comes out tomorrow, but this show with a guy named Dustin Faulkner. Met him via the Clay Clark event he had down in Oklahoma, which wasn't one of these things where everybody speaks, but instead gets together and talks about podcasting, etc. There was a lot of interesting people there. Met Dr. Rashid Buttar there. Very happy to have met him. Very, very diverse group of people. Ivory Hecker, who is, I believe it was the mainstream journalist that just went rogue live on air because she was just so sick of all the lies and manipulation that even her local news network was providing to the public, because that's been taken. That's a Trojan horse civilian system. We've all seen the videos numerous times where these local anchors throughout the country are reading off the same exact script, the Sinclair Broadcasting script. And I love it when those things go viral, but in actuality, that was something myself, AJ and the gang, we were talking about over a decade ago, because it was happening over a decade ago. And that's really the power of technology. We can use it to empower ourselves, to share legitimate information, or we can allow others to enslave us with it. Okay? And here's the deal. When these systems are utilized, other systems are pushed forward. So you got a Ukrainian flag on your car. All right? Now you're pushing an agenda of not only perpetual warfare, but an opportunity for an event to happen in this country or the world, doesn't really matter, in Russia, in Ukraine, perhaps in Europe, that could change the scope of everything. Just one event. And I talked about it yesterday, and that would be a nuclear event. It changes everything. Doesn't matter who did it. So they've walloped us with psychological warfare. And especially people of a certain political persuasion that think Russia. By the way, have you heard about Russia? Because Russia, and then some Russia. Well, can I slap a little Russia on top of that for you? Those people that think that Le Putin is the most dangerous person in the world. But at the same time, the poot Russia, they're so dangerous. White supremacy and extremism, super dangerous. Same people that were sucking their thumbs. Al-Qaeda, super dangerous. ISIS, super dangerous. Right? But at least a lot of the right-wingers that were people that made those people the enemy. I mean, there's so many veterans now that are coming to the fact that they were lied to about that as well. But we're not, actually going to leave the Middle East. That Afghanistan debacle, it could have been done so much better, but it's there to degrade you. It's there to let you know we're no longer number one. We're meant to bend the knee to a Chinese social credit score, regimented, carbon-based system of utter slavery. Okay? And so, like I said, there are 3 instances in this document that I want to point to. And I know we go over this thing all the time in regards to Trojan horse civilian systems, but then I want to talk about CNN syndrome. Because CNN syndrome is really the same exact thing that we're seeing across the board when I even talk about local news and Sinclair. And you'll get some flavors out there. You'll get some flavors of, other than Tucker Carlson on Fox News, how many people are really speaking out against this Ukrainian conflict? And again, props to frickin' Tucker. You know what he started the show with? He started the show with a 15 to 20 minute expose on how ludicrous of an idea it is that Epstein killed himself. Bravo. Bravo. That's exactly what you want to do. It's exactly what you want to do, because that's the truth. It is ludicrous and absurd. And, the guy asked the correct, can you believe it? He asked the correct questions. Like putting Bill Barr on the spot, who was never your buddy, never your friend guy. Okay? Like literally rooted in the belly of the beast, the Central Intelligence Agency from the beginning, rooted in one of the most corrupt, globalist, enabling administrations of all time, the George Bush administration, the first one, okay? Rooted in lawyering up via a firm that worked for Epstein himself, Kirkland Nelson. And that's the guy we trust. That's the guy. Apparently, might have an alias known as Robert Johnson. Might want to look into that one. So when you're that, and Pompeo's like almost a reflection of Barr. When you're looking at these things, I often talk about the signature reduction program. This is basically a precursor document that lets you know how they're going to infiltrate all these organizations and create a signature reduction like program. And let me get myself out of the way for a second. Right there in that little bitty corner, right here. Okay, I'm going to highlight it. I have to keep pointing out this document predates 9/11. And that is key, because so much of this is spot on, from terrorism and, civilians dying on television and exploiting that fact. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So there it is. Trojan horse civilian systems. Now, in this, you also see information, internet, and psychological warfare, among all sorts of goodies like UAVs, cruise missiles, underwater unmanned vehicles, the blast wave accelerators we never seem to talk about, binary biologics into the food supply. Like ultimately talking about digitized biowarfare right there. Digitized biowarfare, digitized psi warfare, all right there. And it's all inexpensive, by the way. This doesn't cost much to them. All right, so in a time where inflation is out of control, okay, more and more people don't want to work or can't work, and even they're calling it the rich session. No. This is a takeover. This is slowly automated. In fact, one of the stories I have is this young TikToker. They're TikToking, who was showing this lavish Google life. I'm living a lavish Google lifestyle. Look, they feed me this delicious lunch. Check out how cool my offices are. And that's all propaganda, because who gives a rat's ass how cool your office is? And, they literally did comedy buddy movies with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn propping up Google back in the day. That should let you know that you're really being sold on some Johnny nonsense. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. You're being sold on some real Johnny nonsense. It's Hollyweird. Okay, so let's go to the next part where they do the Trojan thing. Trojan horse everything: ships, boats, planes, cars, trucks, packages, cargo, containers. Now, what does that mean? Trojan horse everything. Well, they basically want to have total plausible deniability, okay, when they attack something. You see that when they say transcontinental UAVs and UUVs, nano and AI, nanotech, artificial intelligence. Talk about smart dust in this. All right. Unconventional nuke delivery. So you look at this, and they're thinking about, how can we get a nuclear device somewhere? And this goes back to where I really began in this show, talking about that now we're in a military conflict, a serious one, where if a nuclear weapon goes off anywhere, they can blame it on anyone, and it's a total change globally. Okay? So that's the other Trojan. And then there's one more, and then we'll get to CNN syndrome. Okay? And we're talking about software and information dominance. Subvert, deception, decimation, Trojan horse, viruses. And then they talk about the I.O. and internet warfare. Internet operations, internet warfare. They talk about psychological warfare right behind my shoulder. Chaos, excite circuit, non-linearities. Now, I was talking about this Huff interview with Jones. And really, if you've been listening to Bushnell, the guy that wrote that document, in a lot of these watch-alongs that I do, he's talking about nanosensors everywhere that will create a type of surveillance that most of us can't even imagine. Huff then discusses that there are many Trojan horse devices that aren't supposed to have Wi-Fi in them, And they actually do have a form of Wi-Fi in them that can be accessed, all right? And then they can get all sorts of goodies on you if they would like. And this goes outside of the traditional, hey, let's get a warrant. For instance, we already know about Stingray-type surveillance systems, right? And we had the scandal with Israelis who were using them on people in D.C., and that is largely antiquated. Okay, but those are kind of utilized in a scenario where maybe these devices aren't, or individuals are moving, possibly with burners, and these devices might be in place some places, but not necessarily where they're going to be. And they want real-time surveillance of these people. Not science fiction, not James Bond stuff that's happening right now. Right now. So let's talk about CNN in this document, because I think it's an important document. Okay? And right here, they're telling you, exploit CNN syndrome. Capture and torture Americans in living color on prime time. Terror attacks within the continental United States. Binary, biological, critical infrastructure takedown. EMP, RF, against brain, etc. So here they're even talking about RF technology against, your very brain. And they talk about serious psy-war and collateral damage exploitation. In other words, exploiting the fact that you're upset you just watched a bunch of people die in the middle of New York City. And when we talk about the capture and torture, right, because it's not enough that you saw those people blow up. It's not enough you saw all those people covered in dust. It's not enough. You take it to the next level, and all of a sudden there are beheading videos all over the internet. And that's, torturing Americans in living color on prime time, 24-hour news networks, on every network, etc. So these are the Trojan horse civilian systems we see every day in the media. CNN is really kind of just the tagline, because that terminology came around after they realized how powerful, or kind of probably knew how powerful, but then proven in spades, CNN would be for the first Gulf War. They actually mentioned it a couple times. Battlefield attrition. CNN syndrome forces U.S. Army to act like SOCOM. By the way, they say cheap micro to nano everything, sensors, munitions, weapons, swarms, and hordes. And this is via 2025. You look at this, machines as creative and smart as humans, robotics are the norm for their warfare. This is just in the next 2 years. They want to bring this all into fruition. Okay? I mean, on the cheap. On the cheap. Okay? Emerging characteristics of robotic systems. Redefine risks, minimal casualties, salutes CNN syndrome. Let me let me explain what that means as they tell you expert systems toward AI and beyond. All right? Let me put that one downtown, Charlie Brown. That means, all right, that because you were manipulated psychologically and exploited into these wars, you don't want to see people die, we can bring in the robots. All right? Because they're much more reactive than humans, and they have a greatly increased tempo. They have greatly improved hyperspectral sensors and data fusion, greatly improved accuracy and lethality, and greatly improved affordability and miniaturization. Greatly reduced logistics. So they intend to use deaths to bring in robots. And remember, they've really already brought in the robots in large scale, especially in the Ukraine. There's, I've got a slew of stories lined up. Maybe we're going to hit them just before our guest gets here. Maybe we're not. We're going to see. Where we're talking at least, from what I've seen and what's being reported, you're not hearing in the United States, we're talking about 100,000 Ukrainians alone dead. Now, how many Russians on top of that? No clue. No, those numbers are harder to trust from both sides, but I've seen enough videos that I want that to sink into people. Okay? I don't like war. I don't like dead people. I don't even like watching these short videos where you're strewn across a battlefield and you're seeing a bunch of dead bodies. But Russia clearly is not, quote unquote, losing this war. No, they're stuck in a hot war that is being driven and fundamentally run by another first world nation. And they damn well know it's not even a first world nation. It's almost outside of nation states, because you are talking about a NATO alliance. You are talking about a military industrial complex behind the scenes that just loves them ducats. Can't wait to make that cheese on the backs of dead people. Again, a tough and harsh reality. I don't like living in that world. That's the world we live in. We got to grow up. Okay? We have to grow up and be adults. All right, so they admit sensitivity to casualties greatly enhanced by the CNN syndrome. You get that? So they know it. Vulnerabilities to terrorism. They know how to exploit these things to bring in their agenda. Okay? So let's see. I wanted to get... Here we go, right here. And some of this is graphic. You know, we're not going to play the hardcore videos. Human wave attacks, criminals used as cannon fodder as tens of thousands dead. How Putin won the Battle of Soledar in Ukraine at a massive cost in human lives. And I'm not here to be top poot. Okay? But like the headline showed this. I don't want to play this video. It's 5 minutes long. It's gross. People are frozen to death in trenches. Yuck. Yuck. Cost of war. Gross. And this stuff will continue. Gunning for Putin as Biden commits 31 state of the state Abrams battle tanks to Kiev. First of all, big deal. You know how quick those battle tanks are going to be blown up? Quick. We need tanks. Tanks in a lot of cases right now, when you're talking about these drones that just hang out in the air and then bang, they're almost obsolete in a way. Unless those tanks are going to somehow have anti-drone activity. If you don't think the Russians have basically the same kind of tech as us, come on, grow up. Grow up. Like, that's why there's an alliance in space. That's why there's an ISS. Without the Russian program, I'll bring this book up again. Footprints on the Moon. They were dominating us. Dominating. the dominators in this. And it's acknowledged in this book. Here it is right here. All the Russian cosmonauts, including a woman, they were beating us in every single aspect before Apollo. They're the reason that, and I'm not saying that DARPA wouldn't exist without them, but that DARPA comes into fruition because Eisenhower is like, I don't like the fact that they've got a satellite up in the air and we don't. Okay? We have such a limited scope in the West of what's actually happening globally. And that's by design. All right? So we'll have a certain arrogance about the situation. Oh, that couldn't happen here. A certain acquiescence. And I even find good people who seem to be awake about certain things, just willing to go right along with. Let me give you a few examples, okay? For instance, I think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does some great work, okay? And somehow his son wants, is overseas wanting to fight this military battle on the Ukraine side. And I'm not saying that he should fight on the other side. Why does he want to go to this conflict in the first place? What is there to gain? I interviewed, I believe his name is Basel, or Basel Boz. And I'm not trying to be funny, and it's just hard for me to remember what's first and last. I guess he also does the Blacklist, but this is a special forces guy. And he says the same thing, that he would be there. Why? I get it. It's what you know. It's your gig. But what about this is a good idea? Seriously, what about this is I fail to see it continually failing to see what is a good idea of poking the bear with Russia, having the doomsday clock, as we played yesterday, move 90 seconds to midnight. Fun stuff. And again, we already live in a post-truth world where we have to believe the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed by Russia. Already live in a post-truth world where we got to believe that the poopy pants puppet in chief, Biden, is the one that's signing off on this. He just signs the paper on the camera, and he can barely do that. He isn't making the decisions on this. Not even a little bit. Not even a tiny smidge. Okay? So we're here. We're post-truth town. In fact, I have this clip of the Tuckins talking about basically how they're going to take out Biden with this non-scandal. Perhaps we'll play that right now. And he reflects on what he believes is an operation for Nixon, who then was the most popular president, possibly, at least vote-wise, the most popular president we'll ever have, depending on how CCP style we get. Okay, so here it is. Here is Tucker on the Nixon-Woodward scandal.
Since Nixon got 17 million more votes than his opponent. Less than 2 years later, he was gone. He was forced to resign. And in his place, an obedient servant of the federal agencies called Gerald Ford took over the White House. How did that happen? Well, it's a long story, but here are the highlights, and they tell you a lot. Richard Nixon believed that elements in the federal bureaucracy were working to undermine the American system of government, and had been doing that for a long time. He often said that. He was absolutely right. On June 23, 1972, Nixon met with the then CIA director Richard Helms at the White House. During the conversation, which thankfully was tape recorded, Nixon suggested he knew, quote, who shot John, meaning President John F. Kennedy. Nixon further implied that the CIA was directly involved in Kennedy's assassination, which we now know it was. Helms' telling response? Total silence. But for Nixon, it didn't matter because it was already over. 4 days before, on June 19th, the Washington Post had published the first of many stories about a break-in at the Watergate office building. Unbeknownst to Nixon and unreported by the Washington Post, 4 of the 5 burglars worked for the CIA. The first of many dishonest Watergate stories was written by a 29-year-old Metro reporter called Bob Woodward. Who exactly was Bob Woodward? Well, he wasn't a journalist. Bob Woodward had no background whatsoever in the news business. Instead, Bob Woodward came directly from the classified areas of the federal government. Shortly before Watergate, Woodward was a naval officer at the Pentagon. He had a top-secret clearance. He worked regularly with the intel agencies. At times, Woodward was even detailed to the Nixon White House, where he interacted with Richard Nixon's top aides. Soon after leaving the Navy, for reasons that have never been clear, Woodward was hired by the most powerful news outlet in Washington and assigned the biggest story in the country. And just to make it crystal clear what was actually happening, Woodward's main source for his Watergate series was the deputy director of the FBI, Mark Felt. And Mark Felt ran, and we're not making this up, the FBI's COINTELPRO program, which was designed to secretly discredit political actors the federal agencies wanted to destroy, people like Richard Nixon. And at the same time, those same agencies were also working to take down Nixon's elected vice president, Spiro Agnew. In the fall of 1973, Agnew was indicted for tax evasion and forced to resign. His replacement was a colorless congressman from Grand Rapids called Gerald Ford. What was Ford's qualification for the job? Well, he had served on the Warren Commission, which absolved the CIA of responsibility for President Kennedy's murder. Nixon was strong-armed into accepting Gerald Ford by Democrats in Congress. Quote, "We gave Nixon no choice but Ford," Speaker of the House Carl Albert later boasted. 8 months later, Gerald Ford of the Warren Commission was the President of the United States.
I mean, bravo Tuckins. That's about as hardcore as you're going to get. About as hardcore as you're ever going to get on the mainstream media, laying it down, making people understand how the system actually works. That's how the system actually works. Okay? And all this isn't new. And that doesn't mean that I'm riding for Richard Nixon either. But look in perspective what they did to him as well. And Bob Woodward is still uplifted as some kind of like hero. Then they make movies about him with Tom Hanks. Oh, Bob Woodward, so important. And when he talks about his naval connections, I want people to understand the Office of Naval Intelligence in particular, does a lot of things that most people aren't aware of. They're more aware of what? The CIA, the NSA, the FBI, etc. So I'm hoping that we're not going to have much of a connection issue. We should be having Gary DiBenedetto on very, very shortly. But we'll see. We'll see if he pops in or not. I believe that he will. Some people have problems with that Google Meet link for the very first time. But once again, we shall see. There's a bunch more stories I did want to talk about here. All right. One of them being this one, and it's a tragic story, but I think that we need to discuss it. Cops investigate possibility midwife charged with strangling her children 5 and 3 before trying to kill herself and her 7-month-old son was suffering from postpartum anxiety. As it emerges, horrified husband called 911. This person who did this to her children clearly was medicated. Clearly. So you see the headline with the postpartum anxiety. All right. I want to know what big pharma medications you put this woman on, okay, to make them strangle their 5 and 3-year-old. Okay? Try to kill their 7-month-old. Seriously. It's a snap from reality. You know, and I don't know anything about these people. All I know is that when I see these things, and I see anytime somebody attacks a child like that, especially their own child, what meds are you on? How many families have we seen where you have a murder-suicide? All of a sudden, the husband or the wife just snaps. Just snaps. And look, I understand that there are probably a number of other issues that are in fact going on. Okay, I get that. But when we're talking children, but they never, ever, 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 ever discuss the possible big pharma role. And that's on purpose. Because I'm going to say it again. I don't think that we should allow any of those commercials on any television networks before any videos on the internet from large any platform really. And those things should be website specific, in other words, to their product. So if you want to learn about the product, you can do so on their website or in a medical environment, one-on-one with your doctor, talking about these things. The amount of advertisement that is constantly pushed upon the general populace with these type of medications is over the top horrible. I mean, it's egregious. It is egregious. So let's see. I'm gonna log out really quick and see perhaps if I'm missing this, but I don't think that I am. Okay. Bam, bam. We do it live. Thumbs it up, subscribe, and share, everybody. And no, it doesn't look like we've got anybody in here yet. So we'll see. We shall see. It's got to be 8:35 over on the East Coast. Thumbs it up, subscribe, and share, everyone. Let's rock through some of these stories as we continually do so. Let's see what we got here next. I had quite a few. TikTok lays bare the devastation of tech wreck. Okay, so Google staff who earned viral fame by showing off their lavish offices online post clips of themselves sobbing after being suddenly fired as company lays off 12,000 people. 12,000 people. Take a look at that. I mean, oh, look at how great my job is. Oh, look at they've got M&Ms in the office. Like M&Ms are a big deal. Ooh, high ceilings. And now you've been fired. And I hate to. I hate to laugh at people. But first of all, I hate TikTok. I'm not going to lie. It's an extension now with music of Instagram. Oh, I lost my job. Boy, maybe I shouldn't have bragged about how I was basically replaceable and anybody could have done my job. Like, at the end of the day, these tech companies are as ruthless and hardcore as any big company has been in the past. Period. That's the truth of the matter. Okay? That's the reality. And more and more people are going to be suffering this. That's why you want to be as independent as possible. And that's tough. Because I realize the vast majority of people that have to start a small business have to have something that is brick and mortar. And now we have established through this COVID-19 84 nightmare and the times that we're living under, right, that can be taken away at a moment's notice. Okay, so let's see here. We got it. Can't seem to get on. Is there a code? Link isn't working. Sorry, it brings me to an enter code box. You should be able to just click it. A link. Or copy and paste. Sorry, we do it live on air. Let's see. Code box. There is no code. Is no code. We're going to send them one more. Hopefully we're going to be able to get this going. Sorry, guys. I hate doing stuff on the fly like this, but sometimes that's how we do it. We do it live. Thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. Remember, we've got the second hour coming up in about 22 minutes over at redvoicemedia.com. Let's see. Let's compose this. And I do want to thank everybody who has supported us. Let's see. Copy. Bam. Let's see. Just resent with just link. What's this? I just heard some calling in the background. That wasn't it. Just resent an email. Click that link. Or try another browser. Man, I hate doing it on air. Damn it. That would be the one cool thing about having a producer bring in my guests. But I usually don't have that kind of a problem or an issue. It is usually point and click, point and shoot. We shall see. Okay. While we do that, let's hit another story, because who knows? We might be just doing this on this. This shows you how twisted of a post-truth world we live in. Doctor praises TikTok trend where moms share excruciating experiences of pregnancy and childbirth they were not warned about, including black fingernails, cracked pelvises, and bleeding gums. Okay, well we just got dropped over on the Red Voice Media end. That's weird. That's odd. I've never had that happen before. Just a plethora of fun stuff happening today, everybody. A plethora of the fun stuff happening today. So hopefully we'll get a call back from them, and they'll be broadcasting the rest of the show. Hopefully we'll have a guest on, but maybe not. Boy. Yeah, we are in the cluster truck of the show. So I did want to play some of these because they're out of control. And you see this right here. Finally printing out my list of reasons to never have kids. I really do hate this anti-family, anti-human sentences. Okay? Look at the first one right here. Cons. Baby equals parasite. Let me repeat that. Baby equals parasite. That's a con. That's not real. Your baby is not a parasite at all. Man, I can't believe we can't get the guest on. Everyone will know you did the nasty. So, wait a minute. I thought we were supposed to be proud about our sexual partners. First of all, that's ridiculous. You can be allergic to pregnancy. What? First of all, no. There is always going to be anomalies or complications in instances where you as a human being have certain medical conditions, etc. But in large part, the reason that we continue to reproduce on this planet is because it is a natural way. Period. Supernatural. But you know, again, your baby's a parasite, and you could be allergic to the pregnancy. Just again, over the top, but here we are. It's 2023. You may get rashes on your body. Oh my. Okay. Yes, it looks like we are good to go. Yes, I see you. Do I hear you, Dr. Gary?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. So we do have our guest with us. Excellent. Hopefully I'm not going to butcher the name. It's D. Benedetto. The website is northshorechiropractic.com. As I told you before, we are on YouTube, so there are those rules, but that's okay because we're going to be going over the premium side of the broadcast in about 18 minutes. I met you over in Tennessee, yet you are a Long Islander and somehow stuck it out in New York over the COVID 1984 nightmare. I want to get into that, but before we get into anything, give my audience a background of who you are and what space you're in, and then what brought you to the Reawaken America tour.
Okay, so by training, by vocation, I am a chiropractor. But the reason I went to the Reawaken tour was for the latest endeavor that I am involved with, that I've created. And I'll ask you to jump onto that website, and that is bethecrash.org. So BETHE crash.org. That is our Health Freedoms Coalition that I created, and that was brought together out of a necessity of what's gone on with COVID-19.
So obviously limited on this platform to discuss a lot of that, but what I would like to discuss is the fact that New York in particular, I was living in upstate New York and a long-time upstate New Yorker. I felt like I had to move. It was even more extreme in New York City. Long Island obviously felt a lot of the brunt of that. I had private conversations last year with John Tobacco, who's been on Newsmax and represented the people at Max Pub, etc., talking about his hopes that, look, we don't even have skyscrapers. A lot of us are living a very, suburban type lifestyle, and yet we're under these restrictions as well. What was the vibe for you throughout this thing that really started kicking off in March of 2020 in New York?
What was I didn't hear you there. What was the guy?
No, like the vibe around
Vibe.
Yeah, in your area.
In 2019, 2020?
Yeah, in March 2020 when all the lockdowns started happening.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad in Long Island, and things were, as in New York, we're getting images of emergency rooms filled to capacity and the like, and so people went into complete fear mode and lockdowns, and it was just a complete contraction of everyone's freedoms when they really thought that they were in complete danger of even going outside and breathing. So it really shut down everything. The vibe was really something I've never seen before.
Yeah, and I think that was extremely exacerbated, especially in New York, where you had Andrew Cuomo beginning to do daily briefs. The media attention was everywhere. Obviously, we were being told this was completely novel and that there were no treatments for this. And, that's something that we'll end up having to discuss later, because there are even restrictions now. And Kathy Hochul, the now elected but then unelected governor of New York State, just yesterday basically said that they will not be allowing health workers that were let go, eliminated, or forced to quit because of mandates back in. And again, she utilized the quote-unquote transmission excuse, and she just can't do that to the people in the nursing homes. Yet, one of the things that we might be able to talk about here is the policy that Cuomo had via the nursing homes that was scandalized, but then he was basically exonerated of in an internal investigation, the likes of which was so corrupt and really not even discussed nationally via the media in any sort of important manner. Can you speak to that policy? Because I believe that cost a lot of lives. In April, he basically put into effect a policy in which he said that people that had tested positive and sick would be put directly in the nursing homes with those that were not infected.
Yeah, and I have plenty of patients working in that environment that were traumatized. I mean, they are absolutely traumatized, PTSD from those events, knowing that nursing homes are not set up like hospitals, and they are not able to, they're not equipped to handle someone that's in crisis. And yet people that were testing positive for COVID being sent back to nursing homes. These were nursing home residents, and they were brought back. They were sent back to the nursing homes, and by the looks of it, it was because they were at max capacity of hospitals, but did not want to utilize the other areas and the other venues that were made available from the federal government, and instead he directed them back to the nursing homes. And I had a patient saying that we're not equipped with oxygen that's coming from the wall that you see in a hospital. So they hook up the tube, and then the person can have their oxygen. They had oxygen tanks. They were literally running out of oxygen for patients and running back and trying to get more tanks to then go and then reset that person up, and then they hear someone else choking and dying because they're running out of oxygen. It was an absolute disaster. He put people back into a scene that an environment that never ever should have been.
Absolutely. And again, there was no accountability. I believe to kind of obfuscate that scandal, they made a non-scandal out of his sexual behavior that equated to some grab ass. And now he's suing New York State, by the way, and may get his money back after the fact. I think that there is a rebranding in the works, just like there has been a rebranding for his brother Chris, where he's gone from a mouthpiece for the establishment via CNN to now a more balanced, hip podcaster, where he's going to tell you the truth yet again. And you have to wonder, do you believe that Andrew Cuomo will make a political comeback? After all, before that scandal and before people paid attention, he was America's governor, and some people were even saying that he would be a front runner to be the Democratic presidential nominee.
Right. Well, yeah, I believe that it's not past him to come back, even after all that controversy, and rebrand himself as someone that's done nothing wrong and only did right. Yeah, of course. Take a look at the book that was written. And it's an absolute joke that, leadership, the guy, absolute worst leadership, that proven by the people. You can make these arguments. They can make an argument of whether or not he's responsible if he has, blood on his hands for the nursing home deaths. What he is responsible for is ultimately making that decision. And that decision was made, he says, based upon the information he got. I'd love to see, and it was in a press conference I actually watched. It was, I forgot the guy's name. He was the doctor, the head medical advisor to Cuomo. And it was in a conference, live conference, and they asked him directly about the nursing homes. And the doctor was sitting to his left. And he basically threw the doctor under the bus. He said, well, I made the decision based upon what Dr. So-and-so told me. And the guy went like this. He looked at him and was like, what did he just do? And then he just went back like this and didn't say a word. And Cuomo went on his thing. And of course, the reporters gave him a pass of, okay, well, you made a decision based upon your medical experts. So we applaud you, and you've done nothing wrong. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. I was hoping there would be grand jury testimony and bring this doctor in and say, what did you advise? Did you actually advise, based on your medical expertise, that it would be a good idea to bring positive nursing home patients, positive COVID-19 patients back to a nursing home? And there's no way the guy would say that. You don't need a medical degree to realize that would never be advised. So that was, I believe, personal opinion, purely based upon political actions.
Well, I think it also speaks to a microcosm of this cycle of plausible deniability. I mean, Fauci is on this tour and this train where he says, well, it wasn't me who locked anybody down. I'm not the guy that put masks on anybody. I was taking direction from the CDC and the NIH, and they were taking direction from the WHO and the UN, and big tech was taking direction from them as well, and they weren't really working. But no, we were taking direction from the FBI and the CDC, and I mean, we were all following the science. The science. Before we get into the science, I am going to cut from YouTube right now. I'm going to broadcast, guys, a little bit longer over on Rumble and Rockfin because we are having tech difficulties over at Red Voice Media, and I think that this is an important conversation because they gave Andrew Cuomo an Emmy. Let's not forget that. Talk about the Orwellian universe that we were living in. This guy was elevated as these things were occurring to the point where they openly gave him an award that you usually reserve for actors. actors. I mean, if you thought that political theater needed more of an upfront meaning, it couldn't be more in your face than giving somebody an Emmy. So YouTube, we will see you on the flip. The links are down below. And remember, even when we go full premium, you can still listen live over on Podbean. Okay, so let's talk about this because